So we're opening the meeting at 7:03. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone. Thank goodness 2020 is over, I hope. Let's get started by seeing if we have a motion to approve the minutes from the December 8th, 2020, over a month ago board meeting. Is there a motion to approve? I see a hand from Paul to approve. Is there a second? Lynn has a second. Okay, is there any discussion of those minutes?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, all in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, any oppose and abstain? All right, thank you, Bill. Okay, next on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah.
So moved.
Okay, I think Bob got in there first. Bill, do you want to take the second?
I'll
Okay,
take the second.
is there any discussion?
No.
All right, all in favor of approving?
Yeah.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that one's unanimous. All right, very good. Okay, next on the agenda are resident remarks. So if you're a resident of Oakland Mills and you would like to make remarks, you have 3 minutes per resident. And if you can go ahead and either raise the blue hand on Skype or turn on your video and raise your hand, I'll take you in the order I see you. And I see Alex first. Is there anyone else? And Ashley. Okay. Alex and then Ashley. Anyone else? All right. Alex, let's unmute. Oh, Alex is unmuted. Okay, Alex, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My comments tonight will focus on the CA staff proposal to close 8 of the outdoor pools this summer. And among them, as you noticed, is the Talbot Springs pool. I'll explain why that's a horrible proposal and why all of CA's outdoor pools deserve to be reopened. Focusing first on Talbot Springs. As you know, it's a large, very diverse neighborhood. And data has shown that it has the highest population and the highest density of children in all of Oakland Mills. The Talbot Springs pools serves as a neighborhood that has the highest percentage of African Americans and the highest percentage of Hispanic and Latino families in all of Columbia. It's a terrific neighborhood, one we're very proud of. And imagine the message it sends when theirs is the pool that's closed. You can understand why people see a reopening of the Talbot Springs pool as a huge matter of social and economic justice. Now, as far as the CA budget goes, it's not just a bunch of numbers. It's a statement of CA's priorities. So CA can afford whatever it chooses to afford. Essentially, it's a matter of choosing how to spend $63 million. Through the years, CA has commissioned surveys to ask a broad cross-section of Columbia's residents which facilities and services they value and want funded the most. And residents have consistently rated outdoor pools as the sport and fitness facilities that should have the highest priority for full funding, even during tough economic times like we have today. So it's natural for residents to expect that CA's budget priorities should coincide with the priorities of the residents and to reopen all of the pools this summer. If it weren't for the residents' mandatory annual charge payments, there wouldn't be a CA. So residents are the biggest stakeholders, and it stands to reason that their mandatory payments should be used to help fully fund all outdoor pools, which residents value the most. As for the pandemic, that's not a justifiable excuse to close the pools. Those pools are outdoor facilities that are much safer than all of the other sports and fitness indoor facilities that CA staff wants to actually keep open. Last summer, other communities outside of Columbia found a safe way to keep their outdoor pools open. CA can do the same. So in closing, I just want to say the pandemic has affected the usage of all CA facilities, but the only major sport and fitness facilities that staff proposes to be cut are outdoor pools. The gyms, the golf courses, the tennis, etc., all are funded, even though they are rated as lower priorities by Columbia's residents. To many people in Columbia, that just does not seem right. So please
Thank you,
support,
Alex.
I'm concluding, please support reopening of all the pools. The CA board needs to trim its budget, and it makes sense to turn its attention to facilities and services that in the surveys, a broad cross-section of residents have valued the least. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Paul?
Yeah, I've got a question to ask Alex. I'm sure you've looked at the budget. What are your thoughts regarding CA closing Haven in the Lake and the fact that it doesn't appear that they're looking at closing other facilities in order to make themselves financially viable?
Yeah, as far as Haven on the Lake, that was rated very low amongst the residents in these surveys. So it just makes sense, really. It loses a lot of money, over $2 million, and it's just not attracting the number of people that CA staff originally thought that it would. However, the gyms, there's 3 gyms, we have 2 golf courses, we've got tennis, all of those are untouched by the CA budget. And that's the part that residents just can't handle. They don't understand why, for instance, the Fairway Hills Golf Course, which is a money loser, is allowed to continue. As they point to that, previously they've pointed to the Haven on the Lake. Now they're pointing to Columbia Fairway Hills Golf Course. But there are other expenditures such as the Sister Cities program that sends people to China and France and Spain. Is it better to spend our money to send people to foreign countries or to open the pools so that our kids can use them during the hot summer months?
Thanks, Alex.
Okay, any further follow-up? All right, Ashley, welcome.
Hi.
Hey everyone, just again
Hi.
bringing you greetings from Dr. Opal Jones's office. I think I'm pretty familiar with most of you, but I am the district aide to Dr. Jones, so I am always here in the background if you all have any questions. I make notes, and Sandy and Jonathan know if you all need anything, how to reach out to me. So just wanted to
Thank
say
you.
hello again.
Hi.
Hey, Ashley, while you're here, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Just before the holidays, I sent you that email about how the county doesn't think what we're positive is their property belongs to them. And we have this sinkhole at the traffic light at Kilimanjaro and Stevens Forest. Is there any way you can help with that? It's been there for months now. And I'm just afraid one of these days, someone talking and texting or something is going to fall into that and break their leg.
Yeah,
Yep, I can definitely
we
help.
did- we did check it out to see, as you asked, whether it was CA, and it definitely isn't, so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yes,
probably a
Jonathan,
good
I'll check
15
into
yards
that
from
one for
CA.
you.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else for speak out? Going once, going twice? All right, let's move on to new business. And first up in new business is, well, that's weird. Is CA spying on us, Ginny? I was going to switch over to new business and an email popped up saying I'm invited to CA's town hall. That's a little creepy. All right, new business. Election guidelines is first on new business. And Sandy, do you want me to try to share the guideline document? Or were you going to
Sure.
do that?
I unmuted Bob Burlett's here, and I unmuted him because he's integral to the elections, right, Bob?
I hope so.
Is that okay, Jonathan?
Yes, let me bring this up for everyone to see. bear with me. Here we go. I hope everyone can see that.
You can make it bigger.
I can make it bigger.
I mean,
You mean
you have the
you
ability.
want me
I
to make it
think.
bigger? Can I make it bigger? That could take me.
Some I can't.
There
I
we go.
guess you can't. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Um,
Sandy, Bob, did you want to lead at least the introduction to the discussion? And
well,
this is new business, so we're reviewing them for the first time
right. And it's
and
weird
gathering
because I
input.
keep wanting to scroll and you're in charge. But everything in red, as I explained to you, and Bob Bartolo has a Notre Dame reunion tonight on Zoom, so he couldn't be here. But they've seen these. Everything in red are changes, and a lot of them. And the board has to, by the end of January, we would hope, approve these guidelines. And then there are the guidelines for this current election year. A lot of what's in red was lessons learned from last year. So about being able to have remote elections, all mail-in elections. We don't know at any given time what the reason might be to have to hold that. So we didn't specify that, if it's COVID-19, then we have it remote. There could be, as we well know more and more every day, any kind of national, local, county crisis or weather event that could change everything. So those are in red. So basically, the first part in red is at the board's discretion, canceling on-site elections or having all mail-in or canceling on-site voting. So that was that. The other thing in red is that all questions regarding the election should be directed to the election monitor committee chairs. Anyone running for office would have their contact information. Any resident needing to contact them will be instructed. Well, their emails will be published once we're in our election season so that they are the ones handling all questions. And that's pretty much how it's been, but it hadn't been defined. Let me just let someone in. I heard the doorbell.
I'll take care of that while you're talking.
Okay, so you have to scroll down because we finished the red. Unless someone wants, if you want to talk about where we are in the screen and the page, please let me know. I just went ahead and put chairs because it seems like we've had election committee chairs. And once again, this year, I hope that the 2 chairs that we will suggest tonight will be continuing. I took away that we would, prior to elections, do a count grid. I don't think we need to tie us down to a counting ballot grid in that sentence, that all materials are prepared in the office. The chairs are responsible for validating irregular absentee ballots. They're the ones who have them. The chairs are the spokesman and they compile final election results. Keep going, I don't hear anyone. Setting the election schedule, election day, all the villages have the same schedule, which is actually done like 2 years in advance so that we know we have to block off our buildings that day for rentals. So it's election day will be April 24th, 2021. I took out some things that were redundant. The election day will be publicized as soon as we do the calendar and publish everything. So keep going. These are per our bylaws, set out dates of when we do what. The absentee ballots, I was giving them because of the slowness in the mail. They're called mail-in ballots, excuse me. I have to change my mindset. Giving them till April 30th, which is 6 days past election day. They come in drips and drabs at the end, and it doesn't mean someone might not have mailed it by the 20th. So that is something that I thought would be, we could do. May 1st is the day that the new board is seated, and pretty much everything will have been tallied by that day. So we can quickly get out the results of it. I think last year we went from Saturday was election day, Bob Burlett. I think we went until like Wednesday of that week or something. But there might have been a few, one or two posts that straggled in, but we didn't, we had set a date.
Specifically on Wednesday, there were a final two, perhaps.
Yeah.
And strangely
think
enough, after Wednesday, there were no other ballots that were received at all, much less any that were beyond the deadline. So anything that had been postmarked by the deadline, they were counted. And the last two came in on Wednesday, which is the extension we gave.
So they do get a postmark even though they're business reply?
I don't know. I don't see them. So I hear both ways. Bob says they do, but then I've heard that they're not. So
Well,
I
the
don't
ones that
have-
came back through the manager at Wild Lake, you did see the postmark.
you did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I would say, since we do have an election day, even if it's a virtual election day, if they are postmarked, it seems to me that they should be postmarked no later than the election day. And then we give, the few extra days for the mail to come in, which makes sense for April 30th. But it doesn't seem to me that we should accept a ballot postmarked,
no.
April 28th that comes in on April 30th, because that's post-election
No
day.
question.
No, we had that in there last year too. Yeah.
Okay, so can we add
Yeah.
something about postmark to this bullet?
Sure. Yeah. Postmarked by April 24th.
Yeah.
Okay. On or before. Okay. Got that. Oh, I could have done that tomorrow. Okay, and then the next thing in red is that on May 11th, which is the second Tuesday in May, but the first board meeting of the new year, the results are certified by the board. The nomination petitions are a requirement in our bylaws. So that is not something that we can, without a bylaw change, not have them. And then what's next is the articles of incorporation that were approved in July 2017, stating the residency of a member. It's the end of residency of a Columbia Council rep. Then in the preparation of ballots, I just added that there'll be room for signatures of members, printed address, telephone number, or email address. Go on, John. Then the next thing is the checking residency. You went past that, but that was something we can't change. It was a rule from the a resolution passed by the board about how we validate residency, and that was a past thing in the verbiage exactly as it was passed by the board, which we do. Election packets. Now, I was hoping this year, and I did talk to Amy, that we would make the entire packet a PDF available online so that someone can print out the entire packet. If our building is closed for any reason, I would put out information about the date and time that people could pick up packets, a few options for those who cannot download it or wanted a hard copy. There's no requirement, and there hasn't been for anyone signing out a packet. So I just really think it's easy if they could just download it. They could print their nomination petition and have everything from home without having to make a trip to the office. But we will have a few copies made on hand, and it will also save us a lot of money in time, because it takes Amy a good week or more to print everything, buy the binders, put them in binders. I think all around that would be a good thing to put it all online. The rest is village manager and staff responsible. It includes a nomination petition. I had just taken that out from another place and put it here. Information regarding architectural covenant compliance is included in the packet. since it did define that the members are on the architecture committee, the more places I can put that, the better. And it's in a lot of places in the book. You can go on. The statement will be available on the website, the candidate statements. It'll be available in the other barn, and we will post it on the door of the other barn in case the other barn is not open, so that those who cannot look at it from the website can go up to the other barn and read the statements. So regular and absentee ballots, they're called mail-in, and I did a check and I wanted to replace everything, and I see it didn't, Jonathan, so I have to go through it again. So, hold on one second, I'm writing myself a note. They should be.
Whoops. I was trying to do it and it's
Yeah,
not
I'll
working.
do it. I did a search to replace, but it obviously I didn't do it correctly. The absentee ballots provided by the village, we will accept the ballots received by April 31st, postmark. We want to add there, John, postmarked on or before April 20th and received by April 30th. The return envelope flap has a space for the sender's Oakland Mills address and a checkbox indicating that they are an owner or a leasee, instead lease there. So could you change that to leasee or leaseor? Up. It's in the red. Keep going, yeah. And then by checking the box, the sender attests to the fact that they are a valid property owner or a valid leaseholder at the address listed on the return envelope flap. And then those are all cross-checked by the committee chairs when they get the ballots against the property listing that CA gives us. Then this is something that the Boggs and I talked about under the authority of the election monitor committee chairs. I think it changed mail-in to absentee, but mail-in ballots may be validated and counted prior to election day. That is a change. There's a 700 plus ballots in a very short window on one day. It's really tough. And so the election committee chairs, with cross-checking by another 2 people, would under their authority want to open and tally before election day. Nothing would be tallied up as far as actual counts for candidate until everything is done, and that would be all under the direction and authority and kept with the committee chair. I want to keep going, Jonathan.
Jonathan, can I just say leaseor means the person who holds title and
Oh, yes, let's see.
Okay, thanks.
needs to be leasee.
Yeah, take out the E. It's O-R.
Yeah.
L-E-A-S-O-R.
No, it needs to
No,
be.
no, E. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
It's
We have
leasee.
committee E's, don't we?
Leaseor
One is crossed out from what I edited before. Wait a minute.
Okay, leasing.
Let me,
Or you could just say tenant.
No, because a tenant is anyone that
Yeah, I
lives
could.
there. Okay, so then the next is campaigning and the county campaigning codes. And then anyone who wanted to campaign on Cedar property, I would be able to give them the contact information because it could change, so I don't want to put the wrong information. And then I added that the Oakland Mills Board of Directors has no role in the manner in which candidates choose to campaign during the election. And then I have, please note that if the decision is made to cancel on-site voting, some of the provisions below will not be applicable and all ballots will be received by mail. If we had voting, these are what would happen. I have changed the date, who can vote. These are all the same. Eligibility. A member who has resided in Oakland Mills 45 days prior is eligible. The actual date is set by the monitor committee. Based on what day election day is. For on-site voting, a member who is considered eligible to vote if he or she can present identification showing that they rent or own at an address in Oakland Mills. If they do not have identification, we ask them to sign a form providing their name and address, and that attests to the fact that they are an Oakland Mills property owner or valid leaseholder. And absentee voting, mail-in, I have to change it all. The envelope flap will have that place for them to check it off, whether they are a leaseholder or a property owner. The election mailer will include, and then eligibility requirements, and then it has all the information about voting. Hold on, just hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, my 97-year-old mother. I had to take it. Sometimes she remembers my cell phone number. So the voting. Okay, we're in voter lists, validating ballots. So all the ballots that come in are validated against the voter list that CA gives us. And I talked about the ID. So we can go on. Electioneering, these are boundaries that are set if we have an election day at the other barn. And these are important because it keeps candidates and their campaigners from intruding on people going in and out of the building. And so these are the boundaries, what poll workers can and cannot do. They can't bring things in and put them on tables. If they're wearing a shirt with their candidate's name, they don't have to switch shirts, but they can't linger around. They go in and out and vote. And the election monitor committee chairs are delegated responsible for monitoring this during the day. After the election, if it's held remotely and on-site voting and ballot counting is canceled, ballots will be counted and verified off-site as authorized by the election monitor committee chairs. Election results will be provided to the community after April 30th, which is the deadline for receiving mail-in ballots. If the election is held remotely, there will be no option to observe vote counting for the safety of everyone and not to have other people inside their homes. This is if there are provisions to look. And then I just took out the exact thing about posting things and announcing them on the front door, that the official election results will be released by the election monitor committee chairs after all mail-in ballots have been received by the deadlines and counted. And then it's about challenging. This hasn't changed. The committee within 5 calendar days after releasing the election results, there can be a challenge in writing submitted to the committee. After receiving the challenge, the committee shall meet in public session within 7 days and make recommendation to the village board. So they're meeting about the challenge and then making their recommendation to the board. And then the committee is not required to consider any challenges unless they could affect the results of the election after the election is certified. This is all text that was in there. Committee should then evaluate the election procedures and the complaint and make recommendations in the final report of the election. And then the board will certify or invalidate the election after reviewing the election report. And that would be on May 11th, 2021.
Hey, Sandy, if the new board needs to certify the election on May 11th, shouldn't the committee submit the report at least a couple of days before the meeting so the new board gets a chance to review the report before they have to vote to certify?
Yeah, so we could probably look at that challenge date, like they have to get it within 5 days after. then maybe they need to meet in less time, given the short notice.
Yeah, I mean, 99.9% of the time, it probably doesn't matter if the board gets the election results the same day they're certifying, but if we don't give the extra time, that's when we'll get hit with the one time where there is a challenge or something like that, and the board needs more time with it.
So what do you recommend?
I mean, I would say at least a business day before. So
Oh,
basically,
I see what you mean. Yeah, so if they get them on the 5th of May, well, then they actually have until the 12th to meet to begin with. So that's a problem.
Sandy and John, I can foresee the way we did it last year is we had all of the packets of 40. We had counted them. So let us say by the 28th, we would have had 95% of all the ballots. And we certainly would verify what was on the totals. So we know where we are. So we're talking about a relatively small number
Yeah,
between
but
potentially I'm just saying between the 28th and the 30th to verify the numbers. So we can get back to the existing board with a pretty fair idea of what the outcome is without
no,
it.
but this is a challenge. Like it's after we release the ballots, and when an election was 4 votes between 2 candidates, we really have to wait until the 30th or make the 30th the 28th or something. But someone couldn't challenge it until we release the official results. And when there's so few votes in between candidates, like 4 votes, you really have to wait until we hit our deadline.
Okay.
so if the deadline is April 30th, 5 calendar days would take it to May 4th. And then 7 days would take it all the way to the next board meeting. I mean, we somehow we have to make the calendar work. Otherwise, the board could be in a position where it couldn't certify the election before
Well,
it
why don't
needs to
we
meet the first
do
time.
that the election committee meets within 4 days of after they give the 5 days for the challenge, that would be May 4th, have them meet by maybe the 8th.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we could also, I suppose, consider cutting the number of calendar days that someone
Yeah.
has to challenge,
Yeah.
or a combination of both. I just worry that in the worst case scenario, we leave absolutely no
No
margin
time.
here.
So how about we have 3 calendar days, and then we have 4 days after that for the committee. So that would bring us up to like May 7th.
And I mean, we're not voting this tonight anyway. So if you and the Bobs want to get together, when you're not in the spotlight here and
Okay.
talk about what's realistic and circulate it, that's fine. We're
Okay.
not voting this for another couple of weeks, so we can circulate it. So
Okay.
my point right now is that this feels really tight. How you
Yeah.
fix it, I think, needs to be worked out based on calendars and what everyone thinks it would take of them to, be able to meet whatever new deadlines we set.
Okay. Fair, Bob?
Great. Makes
Okay.
sense.
So that finishes it.
Yeah, just real quick, when you mess with it, I wouldn't mess with the 5 calendar days for the challenge. I think you need to leave people that as a respectable amount of time to be able to see the results. Not that I think that there's ever going to really be a challenge, but giving them a really short turnaround, I don't think is very fair.
Okay. We'll talk about it and see how we can tweak the calendar, the schedule.
So I had one other thing, but then you moved on too fast, and then I'll go to Bill. Nomination petitions. I think everyone knows my feeling on nomination petitions, but the bylaws require them. So, as a board, we could discuss whether we want to make that a community meeting, item to change the bylaws again. I'm going to put that aside for right now and focus on this election. Um, given that there's a high likelihood that we are going to be conducting the lead up to this election in a pandemic, is there any way to do virtual nomination petitions? Because we have people who might want to run for the board who are at risk and are not going to want to stand face to face with someone to get signatures. And we have residents who might not appreciate people showing up at their doorstep to get a signature on a
Oh, right,
petition
right,
for our
right,
little
right.
village election.
Right. Yeah, we have to make a provision for that.
Yeah, that is a really good point. You really
No,
should.
yeah. How about it has to be, it by email where it says, I nominate Jonathan Edelson, and here's my name and address. You're not voting for him, you're just adding your name, and the candidate would have to submit 10 or, maybe 12 so we can verify it of those emails.
Yeah.
Sandy, does the bylaws require 10 signatures?
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it too difficult to do electronic signatures like we do with the PDFs?
I don't know that everyone's capable of doing that people might have not Adobe on their computers. I have trouble sometimes, or, so I don't know that it needs to be a signature other than an email from that person giving us their name and address and cell phone number, and then we can verify it with the candidate's name.
An email would be traceable, lawfully
Yeah.
it would be traceable, so.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
I mean, I know for the feds, an email is considered a record. So I would be comfortable with giving some kind of virtual alternative as long as it's considered a record and it can be verified.
And I can give everyone in the packet, Amy, listen to me, a sample of, just this is how you will do it. So they can do it like that. Thank you, Jonathan, because last year, actually, we sent it out before all this.
Right.
We didn't even think about it, but yeah, that's important.
Right. I think we were basically turning them in right before everything got shut down and, it was declared a pandemic.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. I saw Bill, and then was there anyone else who wanted to speak or ask questions? Bill, and then Ginny, and okay, Bill, and then Ginny.
Okay, thanks. Two quickies. Well, you have to go through the petition process for this election, but I think it'd be good to consider changing the bylaws, have that in the election this year, to change the bylaws to get rid of the petition requirement and basically replace it by you sign a form that you want to run for the office. Because I don't really see any real function to getting a petition. And it is in the bylaws, so we have to do it now, but I think it'd be something to be good to look at, putting in the ballot this year to get rid of it. Secondly, I'm concerned about the custody of the ballots, that I'd like to see us get them from the post office directly, not go through another village. And I'd like to see dual custody of all ballots all the time. And I'd like to see the box that we put the ballots in under lock and key, 2 padlocks, 2 keys, 2 people, so that we're not vulnerable if we have one person at any point in time with sole custody of ballots. We're putting them in a bad situation that somebody in the future, if there's an election that's super close, can point to that as a weakness and claim, hey, maybe that person changed some ballots. Okay, it's a weak point, my opinion. I think it'd be good to look at dual custody from the post office all the way through the counting process. Just my personal opinion.
Jonathan?
You-
Jonathan?
Oh, I was going to ask a follow-up question, then Lynn.
I was going to as well, so you go
Okay.
first.
No, I was going to ask Sandy, because you've told me this many times and I forget. There is a reason why ballots go to the another community association, isn't there, rather than coming directly from the post office?
We share the cost of the mail-in ballot stamp number so that it reduces our costs from having our own postage paid permit or permit mail. So for years and years we have, and the post office has allowed us to do it. It used to be that they would come back to our own offices, but they wanted to cut it out completely. And then they said, well, it can go to one village. And so we've done this probably for 6 years. When Wild Lake was open in normal business, they were locked at Wild Lake and then picked up there, and the Wild Lake manager sorted it out. Everything is sealed totally. And then last year, because Wild Lake was not in their office, very lovely that Kristen went and got the mail, or she didn't go get it. Actually, they delivered it to her house. And Bob Burlett went probably once or twice a week and picked up the sealed ballots from her and brought them back to his house. I'm not quite sure how one person in their house can have dual custody of ballots. And also want to remind everyone that the ballots are sealed until they're counted. So if the counters went, the two chairs went to sort out ballots and separate them from envelopes, and they were open, like who opened them? So they're not ever opened until they're counted. And they're validated because you need to know who has mailed them in so you don't get two once you separate them. So Bob, did that process work well for you last year?
Yeah, Kathy and I probably did the first 450 working on the verification of the ballot and legitimacy of it, and probably, let's say 15. There might have been some questions out of that large number. And at that point in time, they would still go back with Bob Bartolo and I and take a look at them. And there were cases where children were living in the homes, same last name as the owner, if you follow me, as a renter. And we went through that process for a relatively small number of ballots that were in that category. And then when it got down to the last 100 ballots in that last week, I took those over to Bob, and Bob and Saj did the verification aspect of the final 600 plus or minus.
And they were sealed.
So to clarify, because I understand Bill's concern, but to clarify, the ballots, while the ballots are in single custody, they're sealed, right? They're not unsealed until they're in dual custody. Is that correct?
That is correct. Well,
okay.
We were at that point in time where we had them all verified. Then Bob and I opened them up and created the packets of 40, opening them. You know how that works. And you just slap 40 together with the tally sheets, and those went out to the satellite counters to do the processing of that counting. That's the only time that the actual ballot was opened.
So the verification of the ballots, if I remember, or I'm mixing it up with the national ballots, but the your address and name is on the outside, right? You verify that before you even open it up to see who the vote is for.
Right.
Yeah, the opening is much later, weeks later.
Yeah. Okay.
Lynn, did you go?
No, Lynn's next.
Yeah, actually, Jonathan, your question, when you asked your question, that answered my question as well. So I don't have anything more to.
Okay. Bill?
Okay, one possible scenario is that if somebody's got single custody of the ballots, somebody who's going to make a false accusation or potential accusation, okay, person A is the only person in custody of the ballots. They can look on the outside of the envelope and see the name of the and address of the person who's voted. And they might know a lot of people in the village that might know who they like and don't like. And the person making the accusation could say that single person went through 50 ballots and simply pulled 20 from people they feel would probably vote a certain way, and they simply trashed those ballots, period. So that would be one potential way that somebody could make an accusation, okay? And I'm concerned if we leave our employees vulnerable to these potential accusations. And I'm just saying, this is a possibility. Is it a probability? No, less than 1%. But if we could easily do dual custody, that would certainly fortify our process. If we have places of single custody, that's a weak link that people could go after in a hotly contested election. Now, can they prove that? No. But could they say that's a weak point in your process? Probably. Okay. So I'm just looking at certain accusations that were made about the petition process in our last ballot and issues in the general election, all of that, that if we could work it out and we'd certainly discuss it, look at it, is it possible, et cetera, that would be helpful. If we decide to stay with single custody at different points in the process, okay, that is a potential weak point, okay? And that's the point I'm making. And whatever we do as a board, I'm fine with. I'm just raising this issue.
How do two people control the ballots when they're at people's homes?
Yes, that's the difficult. I mean, logistically, as I've thought about, dual custody is a difficult process. Okay, if we pick the ballots up at the post office, it'd be two people. One person goes to another person's house. Two people go in the car to the post office. Get the ballots, put them in a lockbox, 2 padlocks, 2 keys. Okay, leave them at the village office. It's a difficult process logistically. Okay.
And I'll tell you that, especially looking at another pandemic, our members didn't see each other. They were in their own houses. Bob Bartolo's away for the month of March, and we know that. I can't ask, and they can't meet up. I feel like, Bob and the committee, they've done this for 40 years, and I feel like we need to not look at all the ways people can cheat, but look at the ways that they've done it honestly. That's my opinion.
So here's my thought. I understand. And I think in normal circumstances, when we have mail-in ballots, and they're coming into the office, then yeah, something could be done because there are people together in the office and we have access to our equipment and everything, and multiple people coming in and out. I mean, I think in this circumstance, to me, it's a risk reward or a cost benefit. Is it worth sending people, physically together during a pandemic to protect the election of a 10,000 member community association? What is the potential human cost versus what is the whole budget of this community association should something like this happen, which as far as I know never has. And I don't know that the cost benefit is there. Now, if when we return to normal and we have our normal mail-in ballots coming in, because I think more and more people are going to do that over time, especially now that they're used to it, I think we should look at what precautions we take as they come into the other barn and sit there in the office until they're opened and counted. I don't know if there's a feasible, higher reward than risk solution right now to having this dual custody.
Not for the election of 2021. And in the next year and in the future, I mean, everything has been locked in that blue box as the ballots came in, and staff, would periodically review them for authorization. And then they'd go back in, be banded up in 40 unopened envelopes back into the blue box until election day. So in the future, there are good controls at the village center. But this year, I don't think the risk reward warrants it.
Jonathan?
Lynn and then Ginny.
To me, this strikes me as a solution looking for a problem. I mean, I really don't see where we have any evidence that there's been tampering or fraud with our elections. And I think that given the temper of the times right now, that to raise, as we go into our village elections, to raise fears about election fraud and stealing of an election is really just going a step too far. You know, this is a village board. It's an HOA. I mean, this is not this. I think this risks politicizing our election process and kind of encouraging divisiveness rather than. And I understand, Bill, that you're looking at kind of guaranteeing that or tamping down any fears that it would be, but I think that instead would raise fears. People would say, you know, hey, what happened in the last election? What are they worried about? Is this really something that I can't really feel that my vote is being counted counted properly and that it's a free and fair election? I mean, it's just too much, especially at this time.
All right. Ginny, and then we're going to close this item because we're
Yeah.
about almost a half hour behind.
I'll be real quick. Just a couple of clarifying questions, I guess, based on what you're all saying. If I understand what's being said, the ballots come in, they're sealed in this envelope, and what happens with the staff is you check it against the books that we have, the street addresses and everything from CA, but there's still the ballots in there. Nobody actually sees the vote. And then it still stays with Bob and Bob, and they just make it in 40 packets, but they don't open it either until election day. Is that correct?
Or until the time at which they're counting.
Well, that would be after the 24th. Or,
Not necessarily, because I already put in here that they, under their authority, they might count prior to election day. No one commented.
Oh dear, that I would raise a concern about, but as opposed to, I don't know if we want to really do something like that, okay? I guess the other question in terms of answering Sandy's question about how you can sort of guarantee, we print X number of ballots, we keep track of them. So nobody's going to get a handful of ballots because we're keeping track of each ballot. So nobody's going to get them that they can substitute for other ballots.
No.
Right, I'm just saying that is the safeguard there. Because I can see what Bill's saying. There was a chance last year where perhaps we could have wind up with a difficult situation and lawsuit, et cetera. So I think Bill is
Why was there a chance?
No. I mean, if somebody had decided to do something that, I'm trying to figure out how to say this in terms of what was happening last year, not at the election, what was happening overall.
I don't think you can safely say it.
I mean, I don't understand it. Everything last year was.
No, don't misunderstand. I don't mean the election. I mean, sometimes, how do you say this tactfully? Sometimes it could have been a board member that wanted to, you understand where I'm going, to do something.
No, I don't get it, but that's okay. That's me.
Around the election, it just could have been, I thought what Bill was trying to do is just see if somebody would do something, even though it might not be valid. He was trying to protect us, that's all, I think. But the point is,
there's the possibility of somebody making trouble. It could.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Whether it's valid or not, I'm trying to find a way of saying that.
Yes.
That's where Bill was coming from, is my sense. But the absentee ballots, if we really keep track of the number and where they're going, then that kind of guarantees that nobody's going to have a stash and do that. But here is my other question. When the addresses of a ballot coming in are checked off on something, When we got that list of people that had voted the previous year, I was having trouble finding people in apartments. Is that list kept separately or something, or?
The apartment list is a separate list of apartment addresses and street addresses, but it's generated, Amy can help me on this. We have lists from all the apartments of every unit and every number and every address. So that doesn't come from, does that come from CA, Amy, or is it the one you do?
Yeah, it comes from CA and then I organize it
Yeah,
because it has some extra information, but
they're
it
all
doesn't,
there, but we
it doesn't have
hardly,
the names of the leases though.
we've hardly had any apartments vote in each election. You might get 12 people.
My question was, when we got the list of who voted in the, not the last election, the previous one, I didn't see any from apartments. So where does that list go of the people that, or the apartments that have voted? Shouldn't we have, don't you put that all, do you put that all together? It's just a question.
Yes, Bob, those are all on the same sheets.
They were? Okay.
He's the one who, I
No, there are
didn't,
separate sheets for the apartments, right? With the, give all of the addresses. And when we get one from apartment 27 Jones, on those large sheets, we write 27 Jones
okay, so you're
ballot.
doing,
Do you follow me?
yeah,
So it's not as clear and concise as those,
as the mail-in one.
That's why I did.
But we do check them off. We have rosters of every apartment.
Yeah, okay, so it was just the way it came out. Wasn't able to actually read
Probably.
a specific apartment. Okay. Thank you. That was all I had.
Okay. So Sandy, Bob,
Bravo.
Bob's. Sandy, I'll send the document back to you because I was doing a little bit of live editing, but I probably didn't get everything. And then if you could look at that calendar question, look at the question of nomination petitions, you know, maybe even document the precautions we take to secure them as best as possible. And Bill, I'm with you overall on nomination petitions, but I think that's probably a new business discussion maybe for the next meeting, because that's sort of independent of the election process. It would come up as part of the election because that's also considered our membership meeting. But that would be something that we would need to discuss and, propose language as a bylaw amendment, and then make sure that we get it on the ballot along with the people running for office. Okay.
And then
Let's,
everyone can, you have time to look this over. If there's anything
Yeah.
that, it'll be old business next meeting.
now, did we need discussion on the election monitor committee chairs, or are we
Yes,
just saying that Bob and Bob are interested so that we can vote on them the next meeting?
Right. I've talked to Bob Burlett and Bob Bartolo, and they both very nicely said that they would take this volunteer position on again.
Thank you,
So-
Bob's.
Here, the other side.
Yeah, that's why I said the Bobs are here. Yeah.
Oh, the Bobs are here. I'm trying to unmute him, but I don't know. He looks different.
Yeah.
I unmute. There you
There
go.
he
Hi,
is.
Bob.
Hello.
So we're talking now about having you at the next meeting, the Bobs be voted as chairs. And I said you graciously said you would do this again.
No.
Do we double our pay this time?
Yes.
Yeah,
You promised.
I know. I promise a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Double pay and a 15% bonus on top of that.
Good.
No, I promise a nice meal when we can get together, though.
All right. So we'll reflect for tonight's minutes that Bob Burlett and Bob Bertolo have volunteered to chair the election monitor committee again. And that way, as old business, next meeting, we can bring their offer to do this to a vote for nomination.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And nice presentation, Alex.
All right. While we're while we're talking about election stuff, let's just move right into old business. So we have a vacant board seat, and with a vacant board seat, it's the discretion of the board to not only fill that vacant board seat, but determine how to fill that vacant board seat. So we talked about this on December 8th, and I said, take a month, enjoy the holidays, think about it, because we have two decisions to make. One is, are we filling the vacant board seat? And if the answer to that is yes, the second one is how. So let's start with, are we filling the vacant board seat? And then if we say yes, we'll discuss how we might go about doing that. So I will open it up for discussion. You know, if we do fill the vacant board seat, we're in our first January meeting. We have one more January meeting. You know, realistically, if we were to follow a process similar to what we've done in the past, then we could probably have a new member seated on the board for about a quarter of our year. Don't everyone raise your hand at once if you want to say something, Bill.
I'd be for filling it because there'd be sufficient time that it would be effective to do so. If we were much closer to the election and all, I would say just let the election take care of it, but probably we could get a board member in. So I'd be for filling the slot.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, barring any thoughts, I'm going to make a motion that we will fill our vacant board seat with an interested candidate. Is there a second to that motion?
I second.
Okay, Bill seconds. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that, where did Paul go? Is that everyone? Paul, are you?
Paul's there.
Okay, I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. 5 in favor?
Or 5.
Okay, opposed? Abstain?
I think he's there.
Paul, are you hearing us?
Are you sleeping, Paul?
It might be frozen.
I think he froze.
No, he's moving.
There he is.
No, there he
He's
goes.
Here he is.
Paul, did you hear the motion?
Yeah, I heard the motion.
Oh, what was your vote? Were you for? We didn't see your hand. 4. Okay, unanimous 4. All right, so the next step is to determine how to do it. So Sandy, correct me if I get this wrong. In the past, what we've done is Sandy has put out community-wide email as well as social media postings advertising that we have a vacancy on the board, and the board at its discretion can elect to fill that vacancy by accepting interested parties and then appointing one of those interested parties to the board. We gave a certain amount of time, and I don't recall what, but we gave a certain amount of time for interested parties to submit statements of interest, you know, via Sandy, which she would then distribute to the board. In the past, if we had, I believe, only one person interested, we would bring that person before the board in a future session. The board would have some time to kind of, you know, interview that person, get to know them, and then the board, through a closed ballot, would do a yay or nay vote to appoint that one candidate to the board. If we had multiple candidates, normally what the board would do would be to convene a subcommittee to meet with and interview those candidates. And then that subcommittee would, I believe, narrow it down to 2 candidates. For the board's consideration, and then the board would do a closed ballot vote for you know, either of those 2 candidates, and whoever got the majority on that would be appointed to the board to serve out the remainder of the term. So that's the basic process we followed in the past. And
Jonathan?
yes.
If you have 2 candidates, are you gonna have the subcommittee, or are you gonna meet each of them and then decide as a board?
If I recall, we only did the subcommittee if we had more than 2. No.
Yeah.
You know what? We did it with 2.
You did it?
We did it with 2 because when we actually, when we nominated Bog to the board, Lynn and I were on the subcommittee, and we talked to Bog and one other candidate. So I think even then we limited it to 2, because I think I think the subcommittee's role then was to determine whether we wanted to pass both on to the board, or, you know, there was, you know, basically one we thought we should recommend to the board, and the other was, you know, they're not really serious about this or anything. But I believe ultimately we, I believe ultimately the board did vote on both candidates, because we did pass both on to the board.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure if it was
Yeah,
two.
because I think I've been involved. Oh gosh, I've been involved in three. We had one year where we did have more than two interested. We had one year where we only had one, and then we had one year where we had two.
Okay.
Sounds like you lose candidates mid-year, mid-season often.
Some people have moved.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we
that's
had
the
we
biggest
had well
reason.
we had a vice chair who moved to England for his job, and we had another board member who took a job, and their boss decided that the board was a conflict of interest and had to
Yeah.
resign. And then what was the oh, and another one was a covenant compliance issue.
Yeah. So now what are you doing? We want to move on.
Well, no, now.
No, I mean, you want to pick dates and decide.
Well, first of all, I want to see if this is the process we want to follow, or if others have ideas. You know, just because we've done it before doesn't mean we have to do it again. I just wanted to remind everyone of what we've done in the past, or tell those who haven't been here for it what we've done in the past.
I think what we did before works fine. I think we should just stick with it.
I agree.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Okay.
Can you remind me how you said you picked the subcommittee that then presented the candidates to the board?
Well, basically what we did is we said, are there three of us who are interested in being on the
Oh,
subcommittee?
Yeah.
And the first three victims to raise their hand got told, congratulations, you're the subcommittee. And then we voted them in. That was about the extent of it.
Yeah. Yeah, but the purpose isn't to be the first deciders. It's just to kind of streamline the process. Should we get like 5 or 6 people show up who want to be part of it? So the full board doesn't have to interview everybody.
Yeah, plus, you have to get it down to that number so that somebody can come out of that with a majority when the board does the closed ballot. So it has to be whittled down to those couple of people, given we have so few people on the board voting in the closed ballot. All right, well, is anyone interested in serving on the subcommittee? All right, I see Bill. I'm willing to do it again. Oh, Rebecca. All right, I'll step back. All right, I see Rebecca, Bill, and Lynn. Okay, so I'm going to motion that we nominate Rebecca Bryant, Bill McCormack, and Lynn Engelke to serve on the board vacancy nomination subcommittee. Is there a second to that?
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion?
No, I don't think so.
All right, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, in terms of timeline, I would propose that Sandy get the communication out. Well, Sandy, when's your earliest convenience? I think we should get the communication out as soon as we can.
Yeah, I can probably do it tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, and do you recall how long we gave people to respond with statements of interest?
Maybe we can give them till Monday so they have the weekend.
That's it?
I don't know. We want to hurry up.
Yeah, I think we need to do it pretty quickly because there isn't that much longer in the term.
We want to get them seated at the first meeting in February, right?
Well, yeah, but that's what I was targeting. But I think, as long as our subcommittee, if they're called upon, could meet before that first meeting in February. Remember, that first meeting in February is a month from now. So I thought we could give them a little bit longer to submit statements of interest, as long as our subcommittee can, commit to squeezing in their, interviews and meeting and recommendation before that first February meeting. But I think in the month time that we have, we should be able to pull that off.
Okay.
What about a week?
If the subcommittee met the week before the February meeting, that still gives people, we can at least give them 2 weeks to think about it and get their statement in. I mean, if we want people, involved, we have to give them a chance to do so, not just the same old,
So,
yeah, I'm for giving more time to let people, think about it and express their interest. Like I said, as long as the, if the subcommittee needs to do its job, it's able to find the time to do its job. I mean, I guess the other thing we have to be cognizant of is maybe the subcommittee would be available on a week's notice, but we need to make sure that the people interested can, work out schedules between work and everything to meet with the subcommittee. So there'll have to be some flexibility on both sides. So, we want to leave time for people to think about it and express their interest, but we also want to leave time to ensure that they're then able to meet with the subcommittee. So,
makes
I mean, maybe splitting it, about 2 weeks and 2 weeks makes sense, right? If we put it out today, and we give probably no more than 2 weeks for statements of interest,
So that
not
would
today, but
be
tomorrow.
like Wednesday, the 27th.
Yeah, which would be the day after our next meeting. And then there would still be another 13 days before we meet again and have to make our final decision with the subcommittee's, uh, uh, results presented to us if they're even necessary.
And February 9th is the meeting in February.
Right.
Okay. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah, makes sense.
All right. Well, we voted to fill the vacancy. We voted the subcommittee. I don't necessarily know we need to vote the details of the
No.
process, right? I don't think we've done that before. So if everyone's good with that, Sandy, you know what you need to do, and we'll go forth from there. And thank you, Lynn and Rebecca and Bill, for volunteering. Okay. Fiscal 21 and 22 finances. Sandy, did you want to kick that off, or did you want me to kick that off?
I'll kick it off, but then you can take it from there. The village boards met with the CA staff, chief financial officer, the director of audit, and also the proposed budget came out with the assessment chair that they would be presenting to the board for the villages for next year. And basically, Oakland Mills assessment share, it's reduced, but it would be just like $650 less or more than it is this year. So it's basically the same amount, and it takes into account that it's not what our normal assessment would be. It's like 18% less than what the normal assessment was. And we're operating, given that they are giving us the assessment share, we have very limited income, and that'll probably go on now through at least July, August. I mean, really, I don't think it's going to be till the fall that we start having robust events. Our neighborhood centers are still, we're getting partial from 2 and enough from 1, but we're still okay because sadly, we don't have the staff. We're not open. We can't have the staff. If we had to pay all of our staff, we couldn't survive on the assessment share that we're getting from CA. But this year, we're not open. And so our staffing is greatly reduced, so we don't have those expenses. So, I mean, I think all the villages felt like we could do it. We understand CA's financial, constraints. And, but the one thing that I talked to Jonathan about, and that he can explain more, is that we might end the year with a cash reserve. And I think that would be very important to be able to retain all of the money that we end with over the 15%, which is what we would have had to give back to CA, so that the villages can have their rainy day fund, as we suggest that CA has a rainy day fund. So, Jonathan, you want to go on from there?
Well, actually, Sandy said it. So, the village board chairs haven't met in a while, but a couple of villages have already kind of gone out on their own, and sent letters into CA. And I agree with some of what they sent. I don't necessarily agree with all of what they sent, but what I do agree with, and what I think we as OMCA should do, is request another waiver of the excess cash reserve cap, so that we can retain, what we bring in. Given that our revenue is going to continue to be down, we've basically cut as far as we can cut, right? I mean, we basically don't have anyone working except who's absolutely necessary to keep our basic functions going and our covenant compliance. And we're not going to really have much, revenue in other than the break-even deals we've made on the neighborhood centers to keep, those were kind of win-win, right? We kind of have some break-even revenue on the neighborhood centers to pay for the gas and electric and stuff, and our tenants have the guarantee that they have a home when they're ready to come back to full operation. So that would be part one, but as part two, I think we should also weigh in and support those with CA who feel that CA should also start building its own rainy day fund or cash reserves, because I think, one thing we've learned from all of this over the past year or so is that that could be very important, right? You want to squirrel the nuts away when things are good so that you can tap into them when things aren't so good, and maybe that would help CA get out of the pattern of basically having to, borrow against the line of credit, and then when the money comes in, pay it back, and, kind of repeating that cycle. So, this all to me rolls up into the whole CA budget situation and the whole CA village relationship, where, the villages have really, had to get creative with things, make some cuts, find ways to bring in what they can. And, I think we should be, in many ways kind of rewarded for being fiscally responsible by being able to keep whatever surplus we were able to generate in these times. And I think we should support CA's efforts to do the same.
Is now the time to squirrel money away? We're not really on a surplus.
Well, we're not squirreling away, but we probably will have a surplus just from the money we're saving on salaries, basically. Salaries and our maintenance costs, some are fixed, but others we're not having the breakdowns of multiple toilets and sinks like we would, and that adds up a lot too.
Yeah, Jonathan, just one thing here. Actually, CA will have a zero balance in terms of the line of credit for 2022. That's changed based on the new loans, et cetera, and the way we're don't have to consider certain uncollectible accounts that we did in the past. So it'll be zero, the line of credit.
Oh, good.
Nice. Yeah. So, and then the issue of the 2 million, I voted against it. And I really have a concern. I think any business should have a reserve. So I'm not objecting to the policy. They should have had it all along. But right now we're getting requests to open the pools. Well, it's a balanced budget. Where are we going to get the money? So that's what we've got to be working on. So maybe this is not the time to have a reserve $2 million right now. But
Well, and I'm sorry, I wasn't suggesting that OMCA get that far into CA finances that we weigh in on what the size of the reserve is. I think we should just support that, CA should begin building a reserve. What it is and when it is, I think, is to be determined by the CA board. I would just like to weigh in with our support that this is something that, CA could and should do.
and should have done a long time ago.
Right.
When they-
Right.
they
But no,
have-
I would not want to send in a letter saying CA should immediately, build a $2 million reserve or anything like that. Just more general support for CA having a reserve.
Yeah, no, what I was trying to say though, it is in the budget and with concerns about some of the items, again, everybody knows this is a staff budget. We're going to start hearings Thursday night. But there is a 2 million there. Now, I don't remember what the vote was on the 2 million. I think I was a minority. I know I was a minority. It passed. But I think there just may have been a few of us voting against it for this year. So that I just wanted to respond to that. Yeah. Okay.
Are there any thoughts on our reserve or the CA reserve? You know, obviously we would need to agree that we want to send some communication up if we want a different outcome than, you know, what's in the management contract. Because right now, you know, the reserve the reserve cap was lifted for last year, and it's reinstituted. So if we do nothing, then we should plan on giving any excess, you know, back over to CA. If we do something, then that might still be the outcome, but at least we've taken our shot at keeping more.
Yeah.
It sounds like we don't need to keep more. Sorry, Bill.
What'd you say, Rebecca?
Sounds like we don't need to keep more.
No, I think we absolutely should want to keep our cash reserve because we are going to have to bring our staff back before we start making the money on rentals once we open the building. So I think that at least to staff a building, we're going to, you know, any cash reserve, I think we're going to have to look at using by the time we want to start opening the building up again before we start our robust rentals.
I'm in favor of having a reserve. I think we should keep a reserve.
I support a reserve also for the aforementioned reasons.
I also agree.
All right, Sandy and I can draft something for everyone's consideration and circulate it. How does the board feel about whether we weigh in at all on CA even having a reserve? And again, I didn't mean to go to the amount, you know, just support the concept of CA having one, which they haven't in the past.
Yeah, I think we should support that. It's fiscally responsible.
Yeah, I agree. And even though this year might be this, you know, right now it would be difficult, but the budget goes for a couple of years. So.
Well, no, the CA budget is a year at a time.
A year at a time? Okay.
Yeah, this part of it.
It seems like a really nice idea, and I'm all for a reserve. I wish that they had had one. I'm not sure right now is the time to point the finger and say you should have had a reserve.
No.
No, this is looking forward.
This is for the future.
Yeah,
The
but it's going to
concept.
take a while for them to dig out of this hole in order to be able to have a reserve in the future.
Well, this budget is effective May 1st, 2021 through April 30th, 2022. So it's called the FY 2022 budget. And that includes the 2 million is what I was trying to explain. The question is, it's there, but you're going to be hearing, I'm sure, I'd be very surprised if we don't hear from a lot of people saying, well, this was cut, that was cut, you need this, you need that. So the question is, what do you have to do to get the money to fund that?
Yeah, I really appreciate the reserve, and it's really important going forward, but I'm kind of with David Smith that the responsibility of CA is currently to the residents, and they need to do all they can to open all the pools. And, you know, if that means going another year without a reserve, that's kind of where I stand.
Well, I think we shouldn't specify the amount. I think we can say that in concept, we are in favor of CA having a reserve and leave it up to CA to determine whether it would be, what an appropriate amount would be.
Yes, I am for supporting CA establishing a reserve fund at a time when an amount that the CA board feels is appropriate given current budget situations.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good, Bill.
Okay, we can draft something up.
Yeah, that's very good, yeah.
Ooh, someone's playing a nice piano.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I like it.
Not me.
All right. So let's see. We did vacant board. We did finances. Oh, we're on to the board chair report.
Wait,
Are we done with CA finances? Do we need to say more about that?
This is our, well, this was our finances we're talking about.
Oh. Like, because didn't CA just release, aren't we supposed to comment on giving them guidance on their finance thing?
You get a crack at CA as soon as I go.
Yeah, Ginny has that under her.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry.
All right. Well, I'm going to do something a little bit different with my board chair report, just because of everything that's been going on. And I apologize to those of you who are hell bent on having the pools open. You might not like part of what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's the way I'm feeling. And I actually wrote out my board chair report tonight because I wanted to make sure I read it and got everything right. So here it goes for the record. I think most of us will agree that 2020 was not a great year. It wasn't a great year for OMCA, for CA, for our county, our state, our country, our world. We're living through a global pandemic of the magnitude that very few people alive today have experienced. Before the pandemic started, we were already seeing signs of increasing division and mistrust over local, national, and world issues. I fear the financial, emotional, and human toll of the pandemic has only served to make bad situations worse. Well, I watched at the Capitol last week. What I watched at the Capitol last week was something I never thought I'd see in this country. I like to hope that was the end of bitter division and the start of something better. We don't have to agree, but we can disagree peacefully and respectfully. Unfortunately, I think many of us are anxiously awaiting to see how the next week turns out to see whether that's true. However, this isn't just a national problem. We've seen tensions run high right here in our little village board meetings. Here in Howard County, residents of our county have turned up outside of an elected official's home rather than using the communications channels afforded to all residents to speak to our local elected leaders. Our school system's headquarters building has been vandalized. Teachers are being accused by a vocal minority of not doing their jobs because they happen to be teaching virtually rather than in a classroom. In some cases, they're being blamed for tragic outcomes among some children. These are tragedies that it would take more than a classroom to prevent. I hope everyone will start to take a moment to think before they say or do. Does it make sense that our state and county leaders are restricting gatherings and certain indoor activities because they want businesses to close down and people to lose their jobs? No, they're trying to save lives and prevent what we're seeing in California. Hospitals with ambulances lined up for 3 or 4 hours and a death every 8 minutes. Do our teachers not want to teach our children? Of course they want to teach our children, and they are. Maybe virtual isn't ideal for everyone, but for some children, neither is the stress of being in the classroom. And it certainly won't help our children from an educational or psychological perspective if they have to watch their teachers and other adults around them get sick because the resources weren't there to secure an entire large school system the way they are to secure a store, a gym, or even a private school. Schools aren't closed, school buildings are closed for most students. Here's the part some of you may not like. Will having only 2 of our 3 pools open for the summer be the end of the world? I'll repeat what I said on our local school discussion group when this came up. I wish people would get as passionate and take appropriate action over the $100 million in deferred maintenance on our OM school buildings that serve almost every child in our community as they are passionate over pools that a subset of us use and that we may not be able to visit much anyway due to the pandemic that is still very much with us. For the record, my kids love the Talbot Springs pool. They'll get over it if they can't go again this summer. I'd rather know they, their classmates, and their teachers are breathing safe air in school. For every OM resident who comes to the CA Town Hall to discuss pools, I hope 5 testify at a Board of Education or council meeting about deferred maintenance. So Oakland Mills, maybe you like what I just said and maybe you don't. Do the research on everything from reputable sources, get the facts, and debate respectfully and peacefully. We all have different priorities and preferences, and it's impossible to get our way every time, but we can and should always respect and listen to one another. And I'll just close by thanking all of my colleagues on the board and especially the dedicated staff of OMCA for their service during a very difficult 2020. Also, thank you to everyone out there doing the best they can to get through difficult times. And that's my report for the night.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Excellent.
Very bien.
If there are any questions for me about what's going on in the village, I don't know. The only thing I will share, because there was some talk before this, was obviously I did hear from the owner of Venaries right around the holidays. I emailed all of you. I tried to get to the bottom of the story. You know, there's the Cedar part of the story. There's the Veneris part of the story. As I was saying to some of you before the meeting started, my last communication with the owner was a recommendation that he talk to the County Economic Development Authority, especially given that they own two businesses in Howard County. And you know, my statement was, hey, it's a lot easier to keep a business in the county than it is to bring a new one in. So, you know, you sort of have something there. Maybe you should talk to them. And I haven't heard back, but I do plan on checking in with them. What I have heard from Cedar is that they did find a new restaurant tenant already that was willing to sign a long-term lease versus being in the month-to-month situation that apparently Venaris was in. They haven't told me what the restaurant will be or what it will serve beyond it will offer carry out and curbside. And you know, once all the legalese is done, they assured me that they would get back to me and tell me what the restaurant is and who the owner is and all that fun stuff so we can welcome them to the community. So that's what I know about that situation. The other thing we might know is Cedar claims that they are marketing the Second Chance property this month for a future tenant. However, Jenny and I took a nice little stroll through the village center during the holidays, and we ran into this brawny guy coming out of Second Chance. So we walked back and said, "What you doing?" And he said, "Oh, I'm just assessing this place to see what it would take to tear it down." So I don't know what Cedar's real goal is for that property. Obviously, they would have to go through a process with us to take a building down. We do know the building is in terrible shape. It's for whatever reason, it was not taken down and rebuilt when the rest of the village center, the rest of the commercial part of the village center was torn down. So it's an original village center building, and it has not been kept up. There's literally, Jenny and I went and looked, there's literally a hole through the side of the building right now.
Yeah, right.
So my assumption, because Cedar doesn't tell me much, is maybe they're hoping to hit the jackpot, find someone who wants it, and we'll fix it up. But you know, the plan B would be, well, we're not going to maintain this thing anymore. We're going to see about knocking it down. And then I don't know what their plan would be after that.
Wow.
Yeah, John and I were inspecting the building on our own with our knowledge of construction. And it was really unbelievable when you really get up close to that building and the holes on the side. I don't see how you do anything almost but tear it down. Or if you want to have somebody else move in, it's going to cost them a fortune, I would think. So, but I wish they'd be honest about it, because those guys were pretty serious about having gone through the building and ready to make a bid and wanting to get that bid from Cedar to demolish it, right? So Jonathan, we also had a bet on what, we're not going to do this on pool with the board on what restaurant.
Oh, you know, I forgot all about that.
I
Yeah.
got the
So
Mexican. I got the Mexican. I told you that.
yeah, so Ginny and I were wondering if everyone on the board wants to, you know, kind of take their guess at what type of food the next restaurant in the village center will serve. And, you know, we could have a little board pool going on, since we have no clue what's coming into either of those locations.
Do we send our thoughts to you, Jonathan?
Sure, why not?
Okay, I'll send you what I think.
Will you
I'm just
pass
gonna
that on to Cedar so that they can hear our cry?
Yeah, oh, believe me, I've told Cedar about things I think would work, and I've actually told some local businesses who have establishments in other areas that, you know, they might do well to come to our area, because they offer things that you just can't get conveniently around here. But I don't know. I don't know. You know, Cedar does not let you in on their thought process. That's for sure.
You know, it's going to be another pizza place.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, Amy, don't say.
And whoever owns it is their own demise.
Can Cedar just tear down a building and leave it as a vacant lot?
Yeah, that's precisely my question too. Can they just tear it down without getting a permit from the county? And the last thing I want to see is another pad like have at the Exxon.
No, I mean, well, obviously there's a process to tear down a building. I mean, there's a county permit process. Also, it has to go through us. That's an NRAC issue, because it's an alteration of the exterior of the property. Now, I think one thing we've learned through the Exxon lock and a lot in other circumstances is, one of the things this county is lacking is any kind of law or ordinance to deal with that situation. So if they're able to get through all the approvals to tear it down, I don't believe there's anything that requires them to redevelop. It's their property, just as the Exxon lot is someone's property, and it can sit vacant, which is not what we want for sure.
Right.
So I mean, I think I don't want to get into the business of the NRAC, but I think those are things that the NRAC and then the village board is going to have to consider, because we're going to be part of the alteration process. Of course, the other risk is that there also isn't much teeth, to deal with a building that's falling apart beyond our covenant process. When you go to the county level, we know that we don't have much success there either. So, it feels like a bit of a catch-22 situation, because we have a building standing there that'll happily fall down on its own soon if someone doesn't take care of it.
Well, supposedly, the new update to the general plan is supposed to help villages like us to redevelop. So I think we've got maybe, some way to twist arms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think, once it's clear, and I think it's getting pretty clear what's going on there, I think personally think we should use everything we have, right? Because once it happens, it's very hard to undo or to get something else done. But before it happens, then, conditions can be established. Other things can happen, making, tearing that down conditional on something else happening. Bill?
This would be a good place to put it in an advertisement for the public nuisance ordinance. Been working on a couple of years. I think we got official letter from Calvin saying that he had considered it and had sent it to the police chief. The chief had passed on it, and that the next step was to take it to Dr. Opal Jones for consideration. The public nuisance ordinance can cover a lot of things. I sent, and Ashley, I know you're listening on this, I had sent to Opal and his staff, I think over a year ago, when Opal had the state of the councilmatic district in presentation in the end of 2018 at Talbot Springs, and said I'd love to work with him on that. I gave the website reference for the Baltimore County and Baltimore City public nuisance ordinances. They were used in Baltimore City to shut down a gas station that had a drug dealing going on. It's used in Baltimore County to go after landlords around Taos University to allow a lot of rowdy students and parties. It can also be used for developments in Howard County that do not have an HOA and covenants, that a property owner, a homeowner lets their house go down. You can use the public nuisance ordinance to get them on the stick. You can use it for vacant buildings, vacant lots, anything that would be considered a public nuisance. You can use that ordinance to go after it and get it cleaned up. So I strongly urge the establishment of a public nuisance ordinance in Howard County. And actually, I'd love to work with Dr. Jones on this. As I've said, I talked with him in December of 2018, and we have, as a board, sent this request to Calvin as part of our wish list with him when he first took over as county exec. So I'd like to see the county move on this. I think it's very, very important. I think there are a lot of needs in a lot of different areas for this. So thank you. End of sermon.
Jonathan?
Yes, Lynn.
I think that we need to, specifically with the second chance, I think we need to get in front of this and not just wait when we hear from Cedar Properties about what they plan on doing, so that we have, we have a plan in place of how we want to proceed. The last thing we need is a big hole right there between the other barn and the rest of the merchant.
So the reason I was, kind of being careful about what I was saying was I didn't want to say anything that could screw up the NRAC process. But if you think I can say things and it won't screw up the NREC process, I think you're absolutely right. And that's why I used, you know, conditions and conditional several times in what I was saying, because my personal feeling is if they come in and they want approval to knock something down, then one of the conditions is, well, you're going to build something in its place.
But
So
also
Jonathan,
really let them know that they need to come to us with a plan to tear it down. If that's what they intend to do, that we need to hear that.
Yes. And so far officially, all they've said to us is they're shopping the property, right? We only know about this because Ginny and I ran into a contractor, and they could very well say, oh, well, that, you know, that's just in case. We wanted to have the building assessed because we weren't sure. But I can, you
Yeah,
know, on the one hand, I don't want to get some poor, you know, some poor contractor fired because he told me something that maybe they didn't want to know. But I can go back and inquire, hey, what's going on with that building? It doesn't look good. We have covenant violations on it, and see if I
yeah,
can get that out of them.
happening.
and
I
also
went by
let
there-
them know they have to apply.
Right. I went by there. I just drove by there a day or so ago, and there was a group of about 5 or 6 people standing in front, kind of, you know, with
Sledgehammers?
no, pads of paper, not sledgehammers yet, pads of paper, making notes and kind of conferring with each
Yeah,
other.
I think you probably should contact her, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
They might
actually,
not realize they have to get permission to tear it down.
Yeah.
yeah.
And then we should get on with the NRAC committee and just alert
Yeah.
them this could be coming up.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's going on with it, can a formal letter be sent to them stating that, you know, we're aware that it's empty? You need to know, since we're the approving authority, that you need to come to us in order to do any subsequent work, including tearing it down.
Well,
That
we
way
went
we're on
on
record, no matter what happens.
we went on record, like 2 days after Second Chance shut down, Karina and I went there and did a complete site visit, and they have that and acknowledged that they have it, with everything that we saw wrong, including the hole on the side of the building. And they said, well, they're not sure what they're gonna do with it yet. So I think a follow-up from Jonathan, you know, and then I wouldn't doubt maybe after that, a letter, see what happens.
Oh, so they
Jonathan.
they did say they're not sure what they're doing with the
Yeah,
building?
she
I
said
wasn't
we're
clear.
gonna be talking about it, and yeah, I have her email.
Okay, then send that to me, and I'm going to send them
Okay.
a follow-up, you know, reminding them that they have these outstanding violations, and we need to know what the plan is to, you know, correct the violations or otherwise, you know, make progress on the building. And you know, it'll be a reminder that anything they do, other than restoring the building to what it is by correcting the violations, anything else they do would require approval as an alteration of the
Right, so
building.
I'll send you that.
You know, actually, Jonathan, Bill, you remember, what was it, about 6 or 7 years ago, we met with the head of Cedar Properties. She drove down here, and she told us that they really wanted to demolish that building so they could save on property taxes, and that was 7 years ago. So I don't know.
Ginny, I think you just talked to an empty chair. I'm not sure where Bill went.
Yeah,
But I remember that because that was the whole, I mean, that was the whole Save Second Chance thing. They didn't have a new tenant. They wanted Second Chance out so they could tear down the building.
Exactly, exactly. And they were very upfront about it, or this woman was, right, Bill, that we met with? Saying they wanted to demolish that building and just save on property taxes, and it, you know, was in bad shape anyway. So that was 6 or 7 years ago. So and those guys were pretty serious about going through that building and wanting to get a bid to them. So I don't know.
So I'm just wondering, you know, because the situation is a bit different now. The rest of the village center is 100% occupied, or will be once Veneri swaps with whatever's coming in. So, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, we had some vacancies. We had a lot of uncertainty around the grocery store. I could see saving on property taxes. Now that they're attracting businesses, I just wonder whether, you know, the same argument should be made. And this might be another thing for the county, but if it's a question of property taxes versus yet another vacant lot in Oakland Mills where, we also have problems of poverty and other issues. Is this finally, an economic development or some other opportunity to give some incentive to keep something standing there and keep a business in there?
I think that we should also contact Opal's office about this, because not only is it an eyesore when we have a vacant lot, but it's also a safety safety issue as well. Safety and crime and safety.
Mhm.
I mean, we know what happens behind, well behind that area, and so bringing another vacant lot right in there would not be a plus for the village.
Oh, but economic development might want to look at it in terms of a potential, maybe you tear down that building because it's in such bad shape and that's a safety issue. But you could be expanding the village center with some other uses that would be more productive. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Involved, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and think about it from the county perspective, is it worth losing, the property tax as well as the income and everything else on that altogether? Or is it worth, finding a way of making it worthwhile to have something else there?
Yeah, right.
All right, well, I will start with a contact to Cedar, and then, yeah, we'll do a quick follow-up with, I think we should do Dr. Jones's office and the county executive's office, because the EDA is under the county executive.
Good.
Okay. All right, Ginny, CCR.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. What I was clapping for is I loved your speech in terms of really saying we should all work together, and also that we should really do our best to get the facts, so that whatever decision we make, it's at least based on information that's factual. So thank you. I really appreciate that. In terms of the CA budget, that's what I'm really hoping people will do is read the first 7 pages of the transmittal letter. It's really a good letter from Milton explaining what happened in 2021 and what's projected for 2022, what are some of the issues that we still should be concerned about, like will the schools really open? Part of the budget is including before and after school programs, but will that happen? So there's a lot of if things here. Will something really happen? So I don't think there's anything really guaranteed until we reach a more normal state. So I think it's going to be an interesting process. But what I did send out to everyone is there's plenty of opportunity for people to get involved. Alex took advantage of that today in terms of presenting to the Oakland Mills Village Board. I believe Alex is also going to be presenting to the CA Board on Thursday night. I believe he signed up for that. So people have plenty of chance to do that. I'm excited about the virtual town hall meeting. CA should have been doing that a long time ago. A lot of us were pushing for that. I see it as the first time. I think there may be an opportunity, depending on what happens that night, for a different format, but another virtual town hall meeting. So we'll just wait and see. But what I'd like to, I guess, ask the board to do is give us a list of your questions about what your concerns are. Lynn, I want to thank you for an excellent email on some of your concerns. Alex sent something with his concerns. So the more we can get before the meeting on the virtual meeting on the 21st, the more prepared staff will be to organize their responses. For example, if we get a lot of questions on the Haven, then there'll be, what are the issues and what's the response? On outdoor pools, the same thing, on whatever the other issues are. So that would really be helpful if you could just jot and send me emails or send them directly to the entire board. That would really be helpful in terms of having a much more productive meeting on the 21st. So I guess that's it. We're all going to be really learning more about this budget. You can look at it. I hope we're doing a better job of telling you how to find things and how to respond to the board, how to speak to the board, etc. I hope the communication has improved at least a lot more than it was a couple of years ago. So any questions you guys got?
Ginny, just want to say, yep, I agree for the board members, for us to send you emails with concerns about the budget issues, apple and apple comparisons in terms of what gets cut from the budget or restrained. I see Alex's point about the pools being cut back, but the golf courses are open and the gyms, et cetera. Is there an even-handed process in making up for shortfalls, et cetera? And then I've always been for top-down analysis of CA. Do we even have the right legal setup for CA? Should CA exist? If it does, what should it do? And always, to me, what do the residents want, the lien payers? Okay, we're paying the freight, guaranteed income to CA. What do the lien payers want in the surveys, et cetera? So I think that for us as board members to get our thoughts to you in writing is very important in the process. And I do think CA is making progress in being more open to the residents for feedback. I like the town hall coming up, that kind of thing, because I felt it had been kind of closed in the past. And I think that openness is great. It's very important. So thanks.
Okay.
Ginny, I just have a question, and you can answer this. I think I know the answer, but we hear a lot about what do the lien payers want and what are the priorities of the lien payers. But as far as I know, the only thing that our lien actually pays for as far as amenities in Columbia is the open space, that you have to belong to the pool. You have to belong to all of these other things. And even though there are the different packages whereby you can belong to some and not others, or maybe just select one, the lien does not pay for all this stuff.
No, if you look at the budget, it's different sources of funding. Is that what you're referring to that go into
Right.
the budget?
Yeah, but the wishes of lien payers is really, it's really boils down to what are the residents of Columbia willing to pay extra for, really, to keep going. Because the lien payment doesn't even pay for the pools. Correct?
Well, okay, I have to get the exact amount of the lien. I thought it was 40 million something, and I think open space is about 16 million, but I'll get those figures for you. So I guess I'm not quite sure that some of that lien money doesn't go towards subsidizing other things because you don't make enough from memberships.
But all lien payers do not have access to all this stuff.
No.
Oh,
But I mean,
well, it's a voluntary thing. Yeah, I mean, you have to, yeah, if you mean you have to pay extra to belong to any of the
Right.
clubs.
All of
Sure.
it. Right.
Yeah, but that doesn't pay for the clubs and the staff and everything else. The lien money goes towards some of that as well. The membership that doesn't support a club.
Right.
I don't think it ever could.
Nor do the lien payments. I'm just in terms of who are the stakeholders. Everybody who's a lien payer does not have necessarily, they have a stake maybe in the golf club or the tennis clubs or whatever, but they don't have access to them necessarily unless they come up with extra money. I just wanted to make that clear, that it's not like we all pay for it and then we're all entitled to it.
No, correct. Yeah. There are things you do get that you don't pay for, like, well, in the past, we were hoping to start more of that, or free activities down at the lakefront.
Right, right.
Okay, although I guess you could throw that in as open space anyway, but then you got to pay for events and entertainment and all of that. So there are things like that you do get as part of the budget. But the
Mhm.
budget is everything's thrown in the pot. And what the idea is, if you read these 7 pages, is what services do the residents of Columbia expect an organization like CA to provide? And there are different constituents that expect different services, quite frankly. And is that a legitimate use of the money that's coming in, which we think will be about 62 million? And keep in mind also that the lien payers are also businesses.
Mm.
A lot of people just think the residents. That's not true. Businesses, and one of the issues that we're concerned about is the businesses have been closed for so long. And when they get their tax bills, they'll be appealing. They are appealing them. So they don't want to pay what the county is and the state are telling them is their property tax, because they're saying, hey, you kept me closed. I didn't get the revenue. So I'm not going to pay that, which then means that if they win, CA will receive less money in revenue from the business community. So the business community also probably has a pretty big gripe, and they do, is what are you doing for me in the industrial parks, in other areas? What have you done for me lately? You hear that when you go meet with the owners of Oakland Ridge or Guilford Industrial Park, and they confuse what the county should be doing and what CA should be doing, and why am I paying? You're not doing anything for me, etc. So
Thank you.
Let me
I'll
try
just,
to address Lynn's question. CA had for years something called the Mason-Dixon survey. It was a longitudinal survey. I didn't even know they did it until I got on this older adult plan working group that CA had. And they said, oh yeah, we've got something that says what both folks that are paying for memberships and folks that are not paying for memberships want to see as their priorities in Columbia. The top priority was always open space. That's number one. Number two were the pools, consistently, right across the board.
mhm.
And, you know, so that is where the lien payers want the majority of their money to go and what they expect. And I just, I mean, I'm not happy with this $60 million budget. I think they're doing it, pardon my French, ass backwards. Because they should be building, in my opinion, a scenario-based budget that basically only deals initially with the lien payer money that's coming in. What can we afford with that? And if by happenstance things get better, then they can always add on things. Trying to cut after you approve a budget is always a bad way to go.
Well, I agree, and that's what we're going through this process, is to make sure, one, are they correct in terms of the revenue? Like, for example, residential annual charge, we're expecting an income of 28 million, commercial 14 million. So the total, you know, it'd be about 42 million. Then interest income, 2 million. Sports and fitness, 18 million, 480,000. Community services, 2 million, but will we get that? Open space, 135,000. I don't know how they make money on open space. I got to figure that one out. Usually it costs us more. Usually I think last year it cost about 16 million for open space. And frankly, I am very concerned in terms of that budget, that if you read exactly what's being proposed for that budget, we really need to spend a lot more on open space. I think one of the biggest problems facing Columbia is erosion. And you see some of it now. You've been seeing it over the years. You've heard a lot about it, but I think it's going to get worse and much more expensive. And I know there was talk tonight about Fairway Golf Course. Um, Last March, we were supposed to receive a proposal from the staff about what to do with Fairway Golf Course because it was costing a fortune in terms of where it is built is not the best place in the world from an environmental point of view. Bridges got blown out. It's a question whether that makes any sense as 18 holes. It's very expensive when that happens to repair them. Or replace them actually is what we had to do, and other issues that come up. So what would be another use for Fairway Golf Course? And there was a proposal that we were supposed to get, and you would have a public hearing and a public process, et cetera, for possibly other ways of looking at that land. Maybe partially a golf course, partially other. We never got that because everything closed down. So that's always a possibility. And I want to see how that's going to be handled this year in this budget.
Ginny, I wanted to add something that I actually said to you when we were doing our little tour of the Village Center. You know, hey, I'd love to see all the pools open too, if it's possible. But what I'd really like to see from CA is some analysis and public presentation of the trade-offs. What would it take to open all the pools? Obviously you don't have infinite money. So if we opened all the pools, there are different things that could happen. We could cut from other areas, and are people willing to give that up? We could raise the lien fee. We could raise the membership rates at the pools. I mean, we could do a lot of different things, and it really, I mean, this could turn into a really detailed analysis if you really took it all the way out. But I think even if we looked at the basics, what are the trade-offs potentially? What does it take to get 8 more pools open? Are people willing to have their open space mode half as often as it's mowed now? I'm just throwing that out there, because I think that's what people really need to see and understand. Because right now, I think people look at something and that's the thing that's important to them. That's what they want, and they may not even realize that to get that, they might need to give up something else that's important to them, or pay more for it, or whatever. And I think we have to be honest and transparent with everyone. And then, if we're still hearing, I'll stay on the pools. Yes, everyone is willing to pay more to have 23 pools, or everyone is willing to have less open space maintenance to pay for 23 pools, or everyone is willing to sell off a golf course to have 23 pools. Okay, the people have spoken. But I'm afraid what you're probably hearing right now is everyone advocating for their thing, but not necessarily thinking about the trade-off. And there, I mean, anytime there's going to have to be a trade-off, but especially now when CA just doesn't have the budget it's had in the past, there's definitely going to have to be a trade-off, because some level of service will have to drop for everything we want to increase, or even maybe maintain at this point, given that CA doesn't have the revenue it had of a couple of years ago. So I think that is very important, and probably even more important than just publicly putting a budget out there and saying, here it is, commenting on it. Because I think most people's tendency, and let's face it, we do it here too, right? When we go in and testify at the county executive's budget hearing, or the county council, we don't tell him what to cut. We just tell him all the things we want, knowing that he's not going to be able to give everyone who asks for something what they want. And I think that's the reality we're facing right now. So I think the more CA staff, and I know they're hard pressed, and I know they've been cut back as well, but I think the more they could maybe analyze what those trade-offs look like, or the more maybe the CA board could say, tell us what the trade-off is if we do open all 23 pools, the more everyone can make informed decisions about that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, Jonathan. It's just the way we do family budgets, right? You sit down and say, well, if you go out to dinner this weekend, you're going to have to cut back on, maybe running movies or whatever.
Yeah, Jonathan, I would love that. And I would hope that people would send that in and come to read the budget, tell us what they don't think is needed. And we can then tell them exactly what the cost is, although they can look here and find out. I wish that would happen. I'm not as optimistic that it will, quite frankly. And I think what you're really saying is CA should be picking things and offering options. If you want X, then X costs this amount of money, and therefore the things that cost that amount of money are ABC programs or D. Yeah, it's going to happen. Something's got to give if something else takes its place in the budget. The good news, in a way, is, for example, something I've been saying for 3 years now, is why is CA doing certain things that the county should be doing? And the county had been contributing, for example, to the volunteer center. That served the whole county. And they, when they didn't give any more grants, CA picked up the whole thing a couple of years ago. And I just think that's ridiculous. It's a county fund function, and this is what happened this year. That's been removed from the budget with exactly that. Howard County government should consider taking over county-wide programs. So that's progress for me. And that's what we should be doing more of. The lakes that we're spending a fortune on, a lot of the sediments coming from upstream. Why can't we get some kind of more contributions from the county, the state, the federal government to dredge those lakes? Open space money. The county gets a lot of that money, open space money. I remember I used to do this for the county. Why can't there be a way of sharing some of that with CA? That's my frustration.
Yeah, and my concern, and the reason I think that, should be looked at proactively, is I'm just, I can almost see it coming. Let's say that, and again, I'm not picking on the pools, but it's what everyone seems to be talking about more than anything. Suppose you do find a way to open all of them. I mean, at first people are going to go, great, yay, they're open. But if they later find out that, the open space behind their house is going to be allowed to grow to like 3 feet high before you mow it, then you're going to be hearing from them about that. So, better to be upfront about it. And again, I'm just using open space and pools because it's something we all have around us and we all experience. I'm not saying that should be the trade-off, but to me, it's a good example that everyone can understand. Okay, you want this thing, but you can't also get that at the same time.
Actually, I understand what you're saying. Be honest with where you're getting the money from. I don't see how you do it otherwise. I totally agree with you. But if you look again, if people would read this transmittal letter, I think they'd get a really good idea of what's happening. Proposed funding, for example, for open space maintenance, all of this has been decreased. Mowing in non-high use areas and non-urgent work orders are funded at 2020-21 levels, which is lower. So, I mean, some of that's already starting to happen because there isn't that much money, and how do you spread it out and get as much as you can? So if you look at all this, you'll see that then reductions. Yeah, but I understand what you're saying. I totally agree with that as a process. I know it was close to $1 million where we are subsidizing people in our community that can't use some of our facilities without the subsidy, without, and you can't say to them they can't use them. So that's close to $1 million. Should that be something the county helps us with? What do they do for people that use parks and recreation facilities? I've been trying to get an answer to that. So every million counts. No, never mind.
My biggest concern, Ginny, and I'll send this in an email to you, is that people moved to CA property because of open space and the pools. They didn't move because of Lifetime Fitness or, any of the other services that CA spends money on. They moved because these are unique to this area. And I think if you start closing down pools, there's not going to be a reason for them to stay here. They're going to move to one of the no-name subdivisions that don't have that kind of amenity because they don't have it here anyway.
So you're saying, okay, well, let's, one of the things we'll be studying is the pools and study the number of people that use it. You want to look at that. My concern also is with 15 pools open, what is that going to look like in terms of the number of people? And why were those pools selected? I think we have to understand what do we expect in terms of who's going to be using them, groups like the swim team, and what time, and what does that mean for other people that want to join and just go swimming? And what will they be allowed to do from a health and safety point of view by the county executive and the county health department? That's really going to play a big role too. And it may not be what people are expecting. Oh, the pool's open, we can just go up there anytime we want. We don't know yet. So that's a serious issue. But I understand what you're saying, but you're telling me then that all the people that feel arts and cultural things at the Arts Center that they really want, or people that really love going to the clubs because it's a health issue, or they just enjoy it, or they play racquetball, or they play tennis, or they play golf. They love it. They see that as something in their minds anyway that CA is offering that helps them. So it gets complicated. The Haven, we're getting letters on the Haven. Don't close that.
Except all of those things are not, I mean, certainly there's some people that live in the perimeter of those things, but all of those things are not things that people expect to have in their backyard. So even if you move outside of CA property, you can still come to all of those things. It's the pools within walking distance and the bike paths within walking distance and that kind of stuff that people, that's unique to here.
And it also means that we are providing a service at CA residence expense and business expenses that the whole county gets to use. Because believe me, the people walking around Lake Elkhorn aren't all from Lake Elkhorn.
For sure.
Our path system or going down the lakefront. And yet it's only paid for by CA residents and business, which seems almost unfair. That's my point about why doesn't the county contribute more? Because our residents also pay for the open space, the lakes and everything, path systems, facilities that are free outside of Columbia, gyms that are free in senior centers, et cetera, that are well, maybe not they're completely free, but we pay for that as well. And yet we don't belong to that. So we're getting taxed more than we should. The other thing is people also don't seem to want the annual charge to go up. So that limits your revenue. It's not easy. It's not simple, I realize. But let's, as Jonathan said before, let's see if we can keep getting your questions, getting you answers, and then perhaps all come up with some options and some decision that makes sense for 2022 to the extent that maybe everybody won't accept it, but maybe it's the best we can do for this year. And then let's see if things get better next year. I think that's all we can hope for, frankly.
All right, thank you, Ginny. Sandy, did you have more financial updates?
No, we're almost done with the third quarter, so then I'll have a good indication of our end of year reserves probably by mid to late February. We had the building painted, well, the railings, which were terrible, going up to the silo, and the lower part walls of the silo and a little bit of the lobby. So that's all done. And I just want to thank Brigida. She had connection problems, so she's not on tonight. We had a Lively Arts concert on Facebook Live on Saturday morning, and it was just great. So we had a nice audience, and they were wonderful performers. So she arranged it, and that was really a nice thing. So that was good.
You had someone all the way from Brooklyn and New York, not Maryland.
Yeah, because, you send out your emails and you send it to friends with kids so people can join from wherever. So yeah, it was really nice. And just hanging in there.
All right, Lynn, any architecture? Oh, I'm sorry, Bill, did you have a question for Sandy?
Just real quick, Sandy, what was the attendance in the virtual versus what your normal live attendances tend to be?
For this concert, I mean, it was like 25, but that was 25 just per people on Facebook, and they each could have had like 2 or 3 kids with them. So for some of our lesser concerts, we haven't had, we've had maybe 30 or so, and then all their kids. So probably we had about 50 people or so watching, because every house there was more than just that adult who logged into Facebook. So it was nice. Well worth it.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Lynn, architecture?
Yeah, just we continue having our twice a month RAC meetings, and things are slowing down a little bit now that we're in the colder months, but we still have applications and for external alterations. We had 6 last week and approved 5 of them, denied 1. Aside from that, nothing more to report, except that I will get together with you and Sandy about working with the NRAC about the second chance.
Okay. By the way, I've made no progress on my doors because my contractor ghosted me.
Oh, no.
Good to go.
Yes. Now I just need to find someone who wants to take my money to do the work.
Oh, wow.
All right.
You know what? My husband works at Home Depot and he knows a lot of guys. So
All right. I might be contacting you. I did one exterior door myself with a neighbor, and after I did that, I'm like, nope, this is worth paying
They're
for.
not easy.
We did one at our house. It's a lot more difficult than you would think.
Yes.
All along.
All right, let's move on to the bulletin board. So Amy, do you have any front office items for us?
I don't think so. Nope.
All right, Sandy, anything?
No, we're doing another food drive on the 23rd. We'll have bins outside. We've sent out a mailing today. So, and if people don't want to do that, the mailing also includes how you can do monetary donations and through Amazon, and that will be for the Oakland Mills High School Food Bank. And one last thing, the Columbia Community Cares thing is going great at Stevens Forest. So that's good.
Great. Okay, let's see, who do I add? Ginny.
He's muted.
Yeah, thanks. One quick thing that Lynn's committee may want to take a quick look at. It's a bill by Delegate Terry Hill, HB 322. It's got to do with the covenants and what you can do in terms of gardening and land use, et cetera, on your lawn and things like that. You may want to take a look at it.
Can you repeat that, Jenny? What is it? It's a
HB, it's Delegate Terry Hill. I was on an environmental Zoom
I'll
conference.
find it, Lynn, and get it to you.
okay, great.
322.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Ginny, is Sherry Fanaroff following that for CA?
Is what? I can't hear you. What?
Is Sherry Fanaroff having that followed for CA?
I'll check the packet. I think she is. Yes.
If she can, could she share it with the villages? Because we don't get that stuff from her. It'd be good to know.
Yeah, this is one I thought you'd be interested in.
Yeah, I'll try to find it, Lynn. I'm sure I can send it to you.
Great. Thanks.
Well, you just call Delegate Terry Hill and she, just
Well,
go online.
it should be online, right?
Yeah, just go online.
Yeah.
If she's filed it, or I think it was from last year, so I think she may have filed it already, but it would be HB 322.
Okay.
Yeah, it has been filed, it wouldn't have a number, right?
Right.
And
Okay.
she's the lead sponsor, Delegate Terry Hill.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Ginny. Paul?
Yeah, just one item. Lynn asked me to say something about what's going on with the BWI roundtable. There's going to be a public hearing on January the 28th from 6 to 8 p.m. And this is in regard to the aviation noise zone. And that is basically redoing every 5 years noise contours based on a set of criteria. And its focus is to control land use within the 65 day-night average footprint. Now that 65 contour keeps going further and further out. I was looking at one of the noise monitors that was put in place, Noise Monitor 22. It's located at Route 175 and Lark Brown Road. And that has a DNL of 62. So the noise is getting further and further into Howard County. We made some proposals last year. We've got an annual report that'll be coming out probably within the next month, where we made proposals to the FAA. They have yet to decide on those. And we'll have to see whether our suggestions for rerouting some of the performance-based navigation, or next gen as people refer to it, gets changed. So that's kind of where the status is. We have another meeting coming up next Tuesday, and we'll see what if any progress we're making with the FAA. And they're bound to be in flux because of the new administration. So that's my report.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. All right, Lynn, I'll toss it over to you.
No, nothing more.
Okay, Bog?
Nothing much.
Okay. Bill?
Nope.
Rebecca?
I just have a couple things from the open space committee. No, not public space.
Public space.
Public space. I always switch it up. Sorry. Yeah, talking to Warren, a couple things. He's really concerned. The committee's really concerned about ADA ramps at the bike paths. For the past few months, they've really been focusing on that, mapping them out. They've sent emails and letters to everybody they know. And Ashley, if you can hear me, I'm going to be sending you an email as soon as this meeting's over. But he said it's been totally silent. Nobody has responded, even to say, buzz off, we don't care about this. And so they're kind of frustrated. If anybody has any connections or knows who else to talk to, that would be really helpful.
Can I add something to that? Speaking of ADA ramps, I've noticed around Oakland Mills where we do have the ramps, and they put down the yellow bumpy tile for people who are visually impaired. Most of that, because it's plastic, most of it has cracked and disappeared, or it's in really bad shape. So, as we're adding them, we'll also be maintaining what we have.
And then the other thing that they wanted a response, I guess, from the board as to who they might talk to is it's been noticed that the condos around the bike paths have a lot of bikes on the decks or on their, what do you call it? And the word's missing me. It's after
balconies.
I'm done. Yes, they're balconies. Thank you. They're all storing lots of bikes on their balconies, and how difficult that must be. One, how it looks terrible, but mostly how difficult it must be for them to have to carry bikes in and out. And a simple bike rack isn't going to do it for security concerns. How could we work with those complexes to get better secure storage that is not on their balcony? Any idea who to talk to about that?
No. That's an HOA thing, isn't it, for the different condo developments?
Well, they're apartments, aren't they?
Most of them are apartments.
Yeah.
I don't know. At Columbia Point, they crack down on people all the time for putting bikes and all kinds of stuff on their balconies. So,
did they give an alternative?
We had to store it inside our apartment, is what they said. I'm like, there's no space in our apartment, so we ended up putting it in our storage unit. So, which means that our bikes didn't get used.
I notice it most frequently at Forest Ridge because that, the balconies are right along the multi-use path that takes you to the bridge. And it looks like a lot of people in Forest Ridge have bikes that they store on their balconies, and I don't know what kind of storage Forest Ridge offers.
There's usually nothing. We had one person that actually locked up their bike in the stairwell and then ended up abandoning it. So
It's tough because I can understand that anything outside will get vandalized and stolen.
But they
It really
have, I
would.
mean, they have really awesome, like the Metro, Metro centers have boxes that you put your bike in and have a key. It's, not more expensive than a bike rack, but not like building an entire parking garage for bikes,
yeah, the apartments would probably charge the residents for that. They charge us for everything. So
Yeah. But is there some way that we could work with them to help, it helps everybody if more people are biking around and using the pads, especially CA encouraging with the motor scooters and stuff.
I guess you have to talk to the managers.
At Forest Ridge, you think would be the best place to start?
Well, they're all separately owned. So each one is going to have a different story or different. Many might say we don't have the money for it. Who knows what they're going to say, They don't want to be responsible. I have no idea. But each one is independently owned. The county owns Verona. You might want to start there.
Yeah, Housing Commission owns Verona.
Right. So, I mean, that would be
that might be
one to start.
Forest Ridge being fully subsidized, maybe
Yeah.
there's some federal
I
funds
think
or something
I
they
would
can tap into.
I'd suggest starting at Verona because it's owned by the Housing Commission.
Cool, thank you.
If you send me a reminder, I'm going to be talking to Peter Engel from the Housing Commission within the next week or so because of some task force work. So while I have him on the phone, I can mention this.
Can do. I don't think they have balconies at Verona though, do they?
yeah, they do.
Oh, they're just not facing outwards, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're facing maybe inside but they're facing outwards. They are, depending on the location.
Some of them face out, like the ones across from the
Basket
pool
ring.
in the school face out. Yeah,
Yeah.
basket ring. Yeah. Now, now Verona doesn't really have them facing out on the paths because they don't really border paths the way some of the other complexes do. That's why I'm thinking where they might be seeing them most frequently is Forest Ridge, because that's the big stretch, right? When you're going from Oakland Mills toward town center, all those balconies are Forest Ridge.
Right.
All right. Does that just leave me? I guess that just leaves me. Okay. Well, as I said before, I'd love to see all the pools open too if we can make it happen. But please, Oakland Mills, for every one of you that turns out to talk to CA about pools, let's get 5 of us out to talk about the schools because that's an even bigger problem right now and one that's affecting everyone who lives here. That there's not well, I guess you could choose to do other things, but for most people, public schools is where they're going to be. And that's really a quality of life issue too. And I know the two things are unrelated, different entities, but I just, I want to see people get concerned about some things that have been going on for a long time as they are about things that are just hitting us right now and, may only be temporary because some of the other issues we have here have been long standing. And by long standing, I mean 10, 15, 20 years long standing. And that's all I have for the night. Unless there's anything else, we can adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
The water seems to have
Night.
gone out here in Thunder Hill.
What's
But,
that?
Our water seems to be out,
Oh, did a water
no.
main break?
Again?
according to the word on Facebook, and I just checked and ours is.
I'll bet a water main broke again.
Yeah, they've been having problems on Thunder Hill Road for the last 2 weeks, I think.
Good luck.
Different
Brushing my
places?
teeth.
Good luck.
Are they in different places where they're having the problem or is it?
Two people in Thunder Hill.
So I learned something because there was a big outage in Harper's Choice a few weeks ago, and apparently, if the water's out, I don't know if it was 24 hours or what, but if the water's out for more than a certain amount of time, then they have to provide you bottled water. They have to, you know,
Oh.
either have it available outside or bring it to the house or something like that. But a friend of mine in Harper's Choice ended up getting a delivery of bottled water because they were out for, I think, like 24 hours.
Wow.
Mhm.
But good luck. I hope it doesn't come to that.
I'm gonna come
Yeah.
knock on your door to take a shower.
Come on over. Put on a mask, come on over, brush your teeth, whatever.
So there's a water main break on Thunder Hill and it'll be out for 3 to 4 hours.
Good to know.
Look at, where did you find that?
I just went to the Thunder Hill Neighbors Facebook.
Oh, okay. I thought you got some alert from the county or something.
No, but they probably won't be as quick as Facebook.
No. All right, everyone. Well, have a good evening, and Sandy will take care of the vacant board seat thing, and our committee can get together and see you all in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Alrighty.
All right, we're
Take care.
adjourned.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.